today's spooky review, we're going to be having a look at the NECA Cult Classics Series 7 Beetlejuice. So how tall is Beetlejuice? Let's take the tape measure to him. The head is about 7 inches tall. Now he has hair that jets out in outrageous ways. That takes it to about a 7.5-inch figure. For his accessories, he comes actually with not one, but 2 different snakes. Would not actually know the species of snake, but I'm just going to say 2 snakes. They actually even went in and painted in the heads, which actually it's quite an impressive feat. They painted in the eyes as well as the little mouths on these little guys. One is green, looks like completely green with a little bit of yellow wash kind of added to it, just so it's not just straight green. I like this one a lot though. I think it kind of reminds me a little bit more like the sandworms. But this has the black and white stripes amongst with the red paint added to the snake here. They are pliable plastic. I suppose you could have him holding it, but his hands are actually more relaxed palms. So holding a snake might be a little bit more difficult. I suppose you could probably try to put it around his head, you know, and just have it sitting on his shoulders is something you could possibly do as well. But he gets 2 snakes. Also to come included with Beetlejuice, he gets the handbook for the recently deceased. The pages are not great when it comes to paint. It just kind of looks like a blob of paint. But, you know, at least the front and back cover are painted. And even like the spine. Handbook for the recently deceased is also there too. That's a very small touch. Like that they have added that as well. And I suppose this one you could kind of wedge in between his finger and his thumb. But again, because his hand is flat, it might even be easier just to kind of have him holding the book, kind of just resting it on his palm. But he doesn't really have the proper hands in order to hold any of the accessories that we just looked at. Okay, so having a look at this figure. Now, I originally had a look at this figure back in a spooky spot in 2012, so about 5 years ago. Still, to this day, love this figure. He doesn't have the greatest of posability, but maybe with a future Beetlejuice 2 on the horizon, maybe NECA will go back and give us like an ultimate Beetlejuice or a Beetlejuice of how he looks in the movie there. So let's have a look at his head. We'll bring the camera in there. I think the head sculpt is actually quite good. I dare almost say, if you have a chance to look at the 6-scale sideshow release of Beetlejuice, I think this figure that's 5 years old is a better looking, well actually that's not true, the figure's even older than that, but I think this is a better looking sculpt than what we got with the 6-scale sideshow release. And that was one of the only reasons why I didn't pick up the figure. Love Beetlejuice, but I thought the head sculpt looked nothing like Beetlejuice. Here, at least, we get some semblance that this looks like Michael Keaton. And I think it actually does look like Michael Keaton. You've got a little bit of that slime that's caked all over his face, kind of the outer area, right where the head connects to the hair. It's a good expression, which is, I thought, something that the sideshow release missed its mark on. I think the sideshow release just had a very neutral facial expression to it. Like the shading also in the eyes, which are kind of a lighter brown, almost brown beige color. But you can even see like the tone of the skin. Looks like it's actually a couple of different colors in there. You've got a little bit of a warmer flesh tone, you got a little bit of the paler flesh tone, and you got a little bit of the white all in there. And they dance very happily among one another. Then you get to the hair, and the hair is done just as good, perhaps even better. The head sculpt and hair sculpt looks quite good. I like the transitioning of the green to this kind of yellowish sort of color. It's a very pale white yellow as opposed to a vibrant yellow. Head sculpt looks quite good. Then of course you get to the rest of Beetlejuice's outfit, which is a black and white striped, pinstriped suit. Which I think anybody who wears a suit, I don't know many that would wear a suit like this, but I think instantly when you wear a suit like this, everybody instantly says Beetlejuice. And I think that leaves a mark as to how not impactful Beetlejuice was, but certainly some of Tim Burton's movies leaves an impression on the viewing audience that you instantly, just like that, you think Tim Burton's work. And I think that's the mark of a very creative writer, illustrator, and of course director. And I think, again, this Beetlejuice figure looks as... If we don't ever get another Beetlejuice figure, I'd be very, very happy just owning this one here. So let's have a look at some of the other cool little things on Beetlejuice. Here we've got his painted in very long, gnarly nails. Got some little patches of that green. Not as predominant as what we got in the head here. You get just as much, just a little lighter, granted, on the hands themselves. I don't know really why, but the sleeves and really the jacket as a whole have this weird, you know, fading clear. Some areas are a little more muffled, a little faded in their comparison to, say, for example, like the legs. I don't think that the stripes are the cleanest, but for Beetlejuice, it's something I could easily dismiss. If it was, say, a Scarface who has similar clothing, the white and of course, the black and the white stripes, I think I would be a little bit more harsher on it. But because it's Beetlejuice and he's a ghost, and he's the ghost with the most, I feel as if I can dismiss the fact that his stripes really aren't the cleanest. His jacket is a little on the dirty side as well, and that's just not from age of having the figure. You'll see like a lot of little areas where it's just got this strange haze of gray kind of added to it. It looks very dirty, even though the figure is pristine and clean. Beetlejuice has his beer belly gut and a shirt and tie. Little pocket there as well. The jacket, as you can see, is rubbery plastic, so you can move it around and stuff like that, which is nice. He's got a couple of watches on his wrists. And a little bit more of that slime. He's got a ring and some more gnarly looking fingers. The hands, generally for older cult classic figures, tend to have this weird, strange thing going for them where they look like they're overly wrinkly and aged. Surprisingly, Beetlejuice, of a character that could probably get away with that, his hands are actually nice and smooth. He doesn't have that same problem. Even like the McFarlane stuff, their older figures very heavily wrinkled in the hands. Luckily, Beetlejuice doesn't have that. Get your pinstripe pants. Get your pinstripe pants here, all the way down to his boots. Which actually has... I would have to look at the boots on him in the actual movie, because he has varying different fabrics that make up his boots. And I don't know if that must be the case in the movie itself. That's not just simply a military sort of boot. And they slightly curl. He does have peg holes on the undersides of his feet. He is the type of figure that if you have him kind of standing flat, and by what I mean is if you turn the legs slightly, it throws his balance off completely. You kind of have to have his legs completely straight, and the figure stands perfectly fine. But if you want to incorporate a display stand, you can certainly do that as well. Speaking of his posability, though, and his articulation, Beetlejuice has a ball joint in the head. So you get even like the nod back and forth, up and down, rotate all the way around. Universal joints on the shoulders. Now this would be a problem. I dare not want to jinx myself by saying this, but this would be like the cult classic, the original figures. A lot of them used clear plastic pegs, more importantly in the shoulders, and well, I guess really more so in the shoulders than anything else. Because that's clear plastic, these are very prone to breaking, so I'm just throwing it out there. I've had a couple of figures already that have broken, more importantly like my young Michael Myers, and a lot of the Chucky figures have broken because they were using clear plastic. Luckily, they don't use that anymore, but back in the day, I don't know why they opted to use clear plastic. He just has rotational forearms. That's about all he does. He doesn't really have, he doesn't have an elbow bend or anything like that. He does luckily have ball-jointed wrists, and they're actually ball-jointed kind of here, as opposed to down by the hand. So you get a little bit of extra motion and movement there. Straight swivel in the waist, or scratch that, it's actually a ball joint up and down there. And then he's got the swivel in the feet. Doesn't really have a lot in the way of articulation, but he has articulation where he would need it. As a side note too, it was strange with the Beetlejuice figures because NECA just subtly, from what I remember, subtly brought in other Beetlejuice characters as well. In single carded, they were kind of cardboard carded figures. Initially we got this guy as the Cult Classics release. Then he was released on his own. I don't think he actually had any of the snakes, but him and Michael Myers and some of those other characters were carded that didn't have the accessories, kind of scaled down release. And then all of a sudden NECA just released a whole bunch of Beetlejuice figures in the same format, that cardboard back. And to find those now are extremely expensive. I kind of missed my mark getting those initially. I would have loved to have gone back and picked those up again, but again, the prices of those are quite expensive. Beetlejuice, of course, as you know, is the ghost with the most, and this is a really great representation of that character in plastic form. Unfortunately, much like many of the other cult classic releases by NECA, finding them in aftermarket is about the only way you can go now. So if you want to get this guy for yourself, you can either get him as the original Cult Classics release, or you can also get him as that bare bones cardboard back release that I was talking about as well. Either way, it's a great looking figure, and I hope this also is kind of like a precursor to maybe getting an Ultimate Beetlejuice, because really essentially all the components they could use here carried over to an Ultimate release, just with some additional articulation that this particular figure unfortunately lacks. With a possible Beetlejuice 2 somewhat still in the works. I know I think they're working on it, or the script's been finished. They may start shooting soon. I can only hope that maybe NECA will give us maybe those Beetlejuice 2 figures, and then maybe give us an Ultimate Beetlejuice as well. Either way though, this was a great looking figure. Still happy that I held on to this guy, and he's still part of my collection today. Today's spookerific review, we were having a look at the NECA Cult Classics Series 7, and this was Beetlejuice. If you guys haven't had a chance yet to subscribe to this channel, make sure you hit that little subscribe button down below. Of course, more spookerific reviews will be coming to you before the end of this month. And then at the end of this month, it's Halloween! Can't wait. But if you haven't had a chance to subscribe to this channel, shame on you. Hit that little subscribe button. You'll never miss a beat when it comes to future videos. As always, guys, thanks for watching as you always do. I'll see you next time.